the minutes again, I'll type those up.
Okay. I went ahead and started that assignment. I don't know if y'all looked at it yet, but I went ahead and like emailed it out to everybody.
Oh, I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, I sent it in like the personal email group.
Okay.
Like I already had 6 out of 7 stakeholders and like 4 out of 5 questions.
Okay.
So it's pretty much done.
Okay.
If somebody wants to take it and do it, I'm okay with it. If nobody does, then I'll submit it. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I just had some things to bring to our meeting here, so I didn't necessarily type anything up. I just was going to talk about whatever I came up with here. So stakeholders, who did you have for your stakeholders?
So the 6 I had, I put the Louisiana. I was just telling Katie first, my mother-in-law was a state senator, Louisiana state senator for 12 years, and she was just term limited like 3 years ago. So, and she was on the Health and Welfare Committee, so she knows all these people that we could talk to.
Oh, great. That's good.
So I can get like a lot of like phone calls. I've already talked to a couple lobbyists about it. So we can actually get some really good information from it. But I went ahead and put the Louisiana Hospital Association, the Nurse Association. I put Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals, the Rural Hospital Coalition.
You guys have, I guess, Joint Commission and CMS, all that good stuff.
Yeah, but those are federal.
This has to be completely state-based?
Yeah. And then I put the Alliance, Louisiana Alliance for Patient Safety. And then I put a phone call in to ask about an organization name for this, but it's the nursing programs in the state.
Okay.
And
I have almost the exact same ones as you.
Really? Did you see the one I sent?
No, I didn't see what you sent, but as you're going through them, I'm looking at my Word document and it's almost exactly the same.
I have a lot of downtime at work, so I went ahead and like basically typed up the assignment pretty much. And I figured we could just add to it.
Okay.
Or redact. It's up to y'all.
Your emails go to my junk mail for some reason.
Well, they could be junk, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
No, I don't think so.
So what about, do you have managed care companies or insurance companies? I guess they would probably have an interest in, quality of care. It sounded like she didn't like our focus on nursing in particular, that we should take more of a quality of care stance on it. I didn't get to look at what you emailed, so you probably came up with a sentence.
No, I didn't. I thought about managed care. I just didn't know the angle, so I figured y'all have more insight than me.
Yeah, I'm thinking it would be more of, value-based payment coming out of whatever quality of care they're receiving in the hospital. So if their nursing ratios are off balance, that decreases quality of care, that impacts the value based scoring, which would impact the reimbursement to the hospital.
That makes sense.
So they would be, let's see.
I can put them in there and then find out exactly what the group would be called.
Okay.
Because I know there is like an association for that. So I didn't know as much about the if we do managed care, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 stakeholders right there. So, unless anybody has like a overwhelming take them out or put these in.
Yeah, not really. No.
Okay. No, the only other one I had was Louisiana State Board of Nursing, but you already got the Louisiana State Nurse Association, so you probably don't necessarily need both.
And I was thinking that the association would be more like people like you that are, and there's an actual nurse that would care more about it than the board,
Yeah. I can see how the board would want to weigh in too, though.
Yeah, I could. And then, we can put them in there. We don't, somebody would just have to write on 2.
And then the only other one I had was payers, which is y'all kind of just discussed that.
Yeah. So, who would the board represent if, that the Nurses Association wouldn't, I guess is my,
It wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. It would not.
it wouldn't? Okay.
It would still be registered nurses.
Okay. So for the hospital association, I just put that it's obviously the stakeholders are going to be acute care hospitals, and then I put their legal affiliates, because if you look on the website for the hospital association, it lists like all their legal people. So I went ahead and put them in as stakeholders as well. Like it lists all their like law firms that represent them and stuff, because I guess if they're gonna have an issue with staffing, then they're probably gonna get sued. So and then obviously the nurses, and then DHH is obviously gonna be involved because they're gonna have to regulate it. And then so my my rural hospital coalition, I separated them out simply because kind of the downside I feel like to this policy, it's gonna, we're gonna probably have to bring up later, is there's gonna be a staffing shortage.
For sure.
And who's gonna get hit worse than those people that are way out in the country that can't get people out there?
Yeah. And I think that kind of leads to like an alternative too, is an alternative can be like, it doesn't necessarily need to be a true ratio, but like somewhat of some kind of acuity score, because in rural hospitals, you may not have the acuity that you're going to have in these, more metropolitan hospitals. So I think that's great to get that perspective too, because you can utilize that for like an alternative.
Right. And then, obviously we put the Alliance for Patient Safety. So that's the patients and their advocates, rather than just putting patients, because I don't know how we would necessarily name the organization.
Yeah.
So I put the nursing programs in the state. Like I said, I'm trying to get a better organization contact and name. And so again, this will kind of be like an alternative, and y'all let me know what you think. But if you're requiring these there's things that I'm assuming, and I know at least from nursing homes, that RNs are doing that LPNs could be doing, or vice versa. So maybe the alternative is something along the lines that we start changing the licensure or requirements to what an LPN or an LVN can do versus an RN.
For, I guess it depends what unit, if we're talking hospital, like what unit you're working on. But whether it's acute or subacute or long-term care, that type of thing, definitely I don't know how Louisiana is, but I know in Pennsylvania, they're kind of not phasing out, might not be the right word, of LPNs, but they're encouraging, the Institute of Medicine encouraging that most licensed nurses, 80% of licensed nurses, be bachelor prepared RNs. So they're laying off, actually, the LPN staff are requiring them to go back to school. So they're getting kind of pushed to different areas of work. So maybe hospitals aren't hiring LPNs. So that would be the only caveat to that. But yeah, that's happening in Pennsylvania right now.
So it's basically like, so obviously the nursing programs are going to have an interest in this, because if they're requiring higher level, then they're going to have to start producing more students.
Yeah.
Changing the curriculums.
Yeah, and they're starting to create these bridge programs too, like LPN to like RN with a BSN, and it's like a different kind of program. So you don't have to do all of the work that someone coming in for the first time has to do. So I think they would have an interest in that. And then the second thing is there's been a lot of cuts to higher like learning institutions. Like I went to a public college nursing school, and one of the reasons they can't accept as many people these days is because they don't have the teachers to pay them, and that's because there's been so many cuts to like colleges and universities. So like that's another perspective as well, that you're losing money, so you can't have as many teachers, so you can't have as many nurses,
Right.
so you're not graduating as many nurses either.
And that kind of plays into our staffing shortage. So
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm thinking like big picture. If we have to write 10 pages, we need some stuff to write about.
Yeah, definitely.
And then obviously we have the managed care companies. So that's going to represent, payer sources. Okay. So then.
So thinking how she wanted us to do more quality of care perspective. I'm just trying to think of how we could bridge in more quality of care.
Well, so like that, I kind of brought that into one of the questions at the bottom, because you had to have 5 questions, some like all organizations and some individual. So one of the questions I did was what benchmark measures would the patient safety monitor or measure to basically measure the success of having RNs? Because you can actually we can do justifiable data on like infections, med error rates, falls, like.
Yeah.
So, but as far as more stakeholders, I'm not really quite sure.
Yeah. I guess internal, like hospital internal stakeholders, would that be applicable, or is she looking for external stakeholders?
I think it would be external.
All external.
Like people that would actually have like say in the policy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're thinking along the lines of like quality improvement groups.
Right.
Yeah. I think that would just be probably hospitals in general too. So I guess we need to kind of start talking about what we're actually going to propose as the policy. And I think Mandy kind of hit it on the head talking about, I think it needs to be, we suggest a policy based on acuity for each thing. Because I think we're actually going to, we're going to have to put pen to paper at some point and come up with a hard policy suggestion. I mean, what do y'all think about that?
Yeah, I found if you want to look it up on the American Nurses Association website, there was a white paper put out. It's like 40 some pages, and it really covers a lot of what we've been talking about. I think we'll get a lot of information from that. It's called Optimal Nurse Staffing to Improve Quality of Care and Patient Outcomes. It's an executive summary of that. So again, it's a nursing perspective, but I think it'll give us a lot of good content to, move into whatever we determine are the stakeholders' interests and things we can kind of draw from that. You just have to, if you go into that, you just have to type in your name, your email address, and where you work, and then it'll allow you to access that document. But I think would be really helpful in writing our paper.
You talking about the PDF file?
What's that?
Are you talking about the PDF file that they have there?
It's a PDF, yeah.
Can you say it one more time?
It's American Nurses Association. And I'm trying to think of the link that I accessed it from, but it was basically on just things to know or about us type, maybe the tab for that. And then there was a white paper on optimal nurse staffing to improve quality of care.
I'll post it on the email.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
I'll send the link.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I guess we need to start assigning each member of us to a stakeholder. So I think, Mandy, you're probably the higher ed guru for us. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, and I'll probably end up just like choosing one or two different, like nursing schools or something that I don't know that we can touch all of them. There's a lot in the state, but I think that would be the best bet is just to kind of maybe reach out to one or two. You think that's appropriate?
Yeah, I think I know there is an higher ed association for that. I just kind of put
Okay, I'll look into it then.
I was telling them, yeah, my mother-in-law was a state senator and was on the Health and Welfare Committee in Louisiana, so she still serves. So I was like, well, maybe we can find some people through her. She's kind of an untapped wealth of knowledge, if you think politics is knowledge, I guess. So I'm going to reach out to her about that and see who we can talk to. She could probably get us a number.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Katie, Ladary, do y'all have any particular association y'all want to be in charge of?
I tap into, and by the way, it's Cotty.
Okay.
It's okay. I'll go ahead and do the Louisiana State Nurse Association.
The which one?
Louisiana State Nurse Association.
Okay.
I'll tap into that.
And I can tap into the Louisiana Alliance for Patient Safety.
Okay. I think I'm going to take the rural hospitals if everybody's okay with that.
I'll do the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospital.
Jocelyn, you want the
And
big
what-
mamma jamma?
What's left? Because I didn't print out the email, so I'm going blind here.
So I think you're going to get the big mamma jamma. You're probably going to get the hospital association.
Okay. All right.
And then
And
we
what
can
was
do,
yours? What was the one you chose, Ariel?
the rural hospitals. Then we can give Hannah the managed care companies.
Okay. I don't know if it matters, but I guess it would all have to be Louisiana too, so that might not work. I was going to say I do have a lot of contacts I could ask just in general managed care questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I flip-flop those, I do have somebody in mind I could
Okay, we can switch them.
ask her a question.
I'll switch those here.
We have a utilization review case manager from a managed care company that comes in to our facility weekly. So that would probably work.
It's definitely an insight.
Yeah.
They have, okay. So what I can do is I can distribute this document out to everybody and let y'all look at the questions I have. If y'all have any additions or maybe just say like, maybe we should put this in there. Just let me know and then we can submit it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That way
Yeah,
everybody
sounds
can review it. So I guess the only, I don't know how many people have looked at her slideshow yet about the criteria that we're going to have to use to evaluate. Have y'all looked at that yet?
Just for PowerPoints from this week, are you talking about something ahead?
No, I'm talking about that. The one where she talked about the political, the economic, and you have to pick one.
I printed the PowerPoints out. I didn't review the video.
The just to toss it out, I'm thinking that probably the technical would be awesome because we could use a lot of those benchmarks to talk about the effects like long term down the road, and that would fit super nice with what we're doing. Because you could use like real numbers, and because that's basically what it starts asking is the effects. How long will it take to see them? You know, what are you going to use to measure it?
Okay.
Just as everybody kind of thinks about it, I was versus administrative, I would vote technical.
Yeah. Political, maybe, but yeah, technical, I see what you're saying with a lot
Well,
of
we have to use economic and political,
Okay.
and then we get to pick the third.
Um,
So that's the only downside.
yeah, then definitely, yeah, you'd want to be able to pull in those numbers. That
I
would.
felt like that was, since we were using that, it might be too easy not to.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have anything that we may need to throw around?
Did y'all already talk about scheduling time with her next week?
No.
Because
I saw.
it looks like teams have already taken a bunch of the
Yeah, all the later slots are gone, it looks like. Later in the evening.
I bet if we email her, she'll open something else up.
Mm-hmm.
Mandy, you want to head that up for us?
I sure will.
Okay. Or is everybody cool with the 6th, or we need to do it on a different day?
Yeah, and it looks like the 6:20, 6:40, and 7, they added a 7 p.m. time. So maybe I'll see if we can do like 7:20.
Yeah, that would work. On the 6th
Yes.
or the 5th? The 6th?
The 6th.
7:20. So maybe we just piggyback off of that and do another Thursday meeting next week,
Mm-hmm.
if that
Yeah, we
works.
can do it after the consult. Okay.
Yeah, so it's all kind of fresh.
Yeah, that's good.
So we can do that, and then I can resend out that document with the updates to it,
Okay.
and then y'all just let me know what y'all want to do, and we'll get it submitted.
So we're not
Okay.
supposed to start reaching out to these people just yet, or are we?
I don't think so. No.
We're just getting it together.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just a kind of a roadmap, I guess.
Okay.
So, and then it kind of said, like, in the explanation, like, at the end, like, how many people actually responded, like, how hard did you try? So, like, we're actually gonna have to, like, put some effort into, like,
Yeah.
talking to these people.
Yeah, I'm sure the bigger organizations, you'll get transferred around and all that fun stuff.
I
so.
think I have the contact for the hospital association for whoever wants that. The president is from Shreveport, so if you want to, that's where I'm.
Do you have a contact for the Rural Health Association?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my boss works with them directly for our telemedicine program. So
Yeah.
he's pretty tight with them too. So if you run into anything. But.
Yeah, no, or send it to me, or if you want to talk to him and just shoot me the info, whatever's easiest. If anybody has any contacts in any of the realms, feel free to reach out and help each other out.
Okay.
Because it'll only make our stuff better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, 'cause I feel like we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna have to start, like I said, putting it on paper, and
I know.
because I'm not really gonna. I'm sure y'all don't want to either. Wait till the last minute and have to write 10 pages
No.
between 7 of us.
I could probably, when we get to that point, I could probably come up with a template just with the, the short heading, the cover page, the running head, and all that kind of stuff. I'll put in like headers for introduction, conclusion, references, and we can just have a blank template we can all just start plugging information into.
Typing. Yeah, that's good. We'll definitely want to break it down and obviously read everything over.
Yeah. So when it gets to that point, are we emailing it back and forth, or how are we each accessing? Wouldn't the formatting get messed up?
Can't we do a Google Doc?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know what that is.
I feel like Levis is far better in the IT realm than any of us.
It sounds wonderful, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do one. I'll start one,
Okay.
and I'll send it to the emails. So I'll send it to the group email
Okay.
so we can start one.
Yeah, 'cause if like emailing back and forth, we'll get lost in translation quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can do that. And then kind of as we go, kind of whoever feels like we have the strong enough information for that section, obviously they can take that over. So I feel like it's getting down to the nitty gritty here. Okay, well, I mean, I guess, let's see what the syllabus says for next week. Have we looked at that? Is it the evidence thing?
Policy alternatives.
Okay, so maybe we start looking at that, like some other options too. So I guess what we need to do is probably actually decide what we're going to make our policy. Like, are we gonna say it's, because I know that California, when I looked at Mandy, it's kind of vague on purpose, so do we make it vague like that and then be more specific with our alternatives? Any ideas? Not everybody all at once.
So our problem definition was there are too many high acuity hospital inpatients requiring care from registered nurses. So we could probably, drill that down to be high acuity ratios requiring like simultaneous care, creating a decrease in quality of care.
Why don't we actually look at the statute from California?
Yeah, that's kind of what that
Because
models.
it's very vague. It's very like their Department of Health and Welfare, makes them do a ratio, and then they leave ratio up to like interpretation of
DRG and all that.
yeah, who's gonna pick that, and so
Yeah.
maybe we did. I was basically, I don't know if I'm sure y'all know that, but hospitals like don't want this.
Mm-hmm.
They hate it. Hospitals hate this. It's expensive, and they're required to do this, and so the way the Louisiana hospitals have set up the rural hospitals is that they get paid to cover their cost regardless. So you're going to have both hospitals angry at each other because one's getting their costs covered if they have to do this, and then the major hospital association is mad because they're more private and they're not getting that benefit. So when you do alternatives, we may look into possible fiscal notes for that, like as far as like maybe we move it around payment or radius to the city or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if their ratios are too high, the patients are too acute, they're not receiving the care, they're probably going home not completely recovered, so their recidivism is increased, so the payers aren't, they're not reimbursing, and then the ambulatory centers and outpatient centers, they're all seeing an increase in, their staffing and caseloads are increasing, and we have a push for aging in place now out in the community. So that is a factor too. I think a lot of the community-based programs, we could tie into it somehow also.
I mean, because if you say like, okay, you're in the city of New Orleans, and we say your ratio has to be, 3 patients to 1 RN. Okay, yeah, that's great. But then if you go out to the rural where it's 1 to 1, that's not really fair to the other people, just because of caseload volume at the other hospital.
Yeah.
So I think if we kind of make it vague like that, then we can kind of argue the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
that's
probably
true.
the smartest way to go.
Yeah. So maybe we look at that. So maybe we start to look at, so I guess we could just kind of say our policy is there has to be an established ratio between patients and RNs.
And then leaving it vague. Yeah, because I mean, even within the hospital system, your med-surg floors are going to have higher than your ICU and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And there are a few other states, like outside of California, that don't like truly specify ratio. There's like nursing like groups that meet and monitor patients' acuity levels and how many nurses are actually. So like there are other states that are doing this very differently than California. So I think we need to look at those alternatives too. I want to say Maryland was one of them maybe that recently did it. But there's a bunch. There's like 15 other states that have some kind of mandate, but it's not as strict as California's is, where they like kind of really define it. The other ones are a lot more lax.
Well, then maybe we use that as more of an alternative. We look at kind of and just kind of spin it for a Louisiana thing from those that have, that have made it less strict.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, to more based on actual acuity.
Right.
And then we could compare their outcomes and see,
Right.
see if it's effective.
Because, 3 patients in a rural hospital may be the flu to one patient that's like, on a vent with a trach and, central lines, a lot more complex than the flu in inner city. So you can clearly tell I'm not a nurse because I'm just like throwing out like the highest things I can think of.
Yeah, no, that was good.
What's like the most complex things I can think of?
Yeah.
But I think it's this whole thing is really interesting to me because as a nurse who worked at the bedside, like I see it from both perspectives now because I kind of work more in the corporate world now and see why money is so important and reimbursement and all that stuff. When I was a nurse, the only thing that mattered to me was the patient, but it literally was terrible when I came on the floor and I was a peds nurse and had 6 patients and one of them had a trach and 3 of them didn't have parents there. And it's why I quit being a nurse, a true nurse, I guess, And so like, I think this will be really interesting for me to truly see like the different perspectives, like how the nurses really feel about it versus how like the hospitals really feel about it. So I don't know. I am super excited about this, and I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see the different perspectives and how people really like feel about this.
Well, I think we're actually we have stuff on paper. I mean, believe it or not, I feel like we're addressing most of the sections. It's just going to be elaborating on the sections.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So she set the class up well, but yeah, I mean, hospitals are not about it at all. At all. But it's interesting that you say like, because I mean, even in the same perspective, someone that's dealing with adults could maybe handle more adults versus someone that's handling more children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's easier to watch 4 adults than 4, 3-year-olds.
Yeah, 'cause you're also gonna deal with the family.
Oh, absolutely.
That's most of the battle.
Yeah.
95% of the battle.
That's what night shift is for. You
I
can.
worked night shift for 9 years. It's still very
Oh,
bad.
on peds, I guess. Yeah, they're always there.
Then you got crazy mamas that haven't slept.
Yeah. Can go to surgical.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we've definitely kind of looked at big picture and then addressed this. I'll send this out, and then again, if anybody has any corrections or additions, please definitely send them to me. And then we'll meet. I guess Mandy's gonna make sure we get in with, or try to get us in with the teacher.
Yeah, I'll email her as soon as we get off.
Okay. And then I'll set us up for next week.
Sounds great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Good night, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.